And at its best, I think that's what hip-hop is still capable of being and doing, being that tool of knowledge that you can put in people's hands with a clever beat or a good hook.
B. Dolan, take the motherfucking stand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You goddamn right.
So why don't you tell everyone what the fuck they have the right to do?
Film the police, run a tape for the underclass. Get the face, name and number on the badge. They flash, we flash back when they act disorderly. React accordingly and capture all that we see. Nightsticks, zip ties, and tasers. Think your license for tight vicious behavior. Make it like this. A video train toward the pig like this. He tricking you, make a favor. You say to the judge, the box you overstepping. 2000, whatever time to change, I'm with it. We ain't lenses at the state's weapon. Till they remember whose goddamn streets they protecting. Y'all, they rather see me in a cell than me and myself with a different story to tell. Can't caught about a dash next time you get stopped. Reach for the celly if you wanna shoot a cop. A public sidewalk, you can take what you see. A film from your window with the view of the street. Neighborhood crime watch, police are police. They can't arrest the whole community because the streets clock these cops. Occupy blocks, harassing the homeless. With arms and pulling blocks, they stop local protests and let off shots. Abuse prostitutes and misuse power they got. It never reach up the victims who were never forgot. We gotta exercise our righteous shit like in the dark. There is an army on the march, it doesn't want you to watch. You got a weapon in your pocket whether you know it or not. We the people, only the real media we got. Protect one another from the fucking Google squad. Fascism coming to the USA. Austin, I got something to say. Film the police. Film the police. Say, film the police. Film the police. And F the police. Film the police. From the protest to the street. No justice, no peace. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, Peaceful Streets, for having me out here. Thank you.
Before I talk about the song and the reason I'm here and how it came about and the reaction to it, I wanted to talk a little bit about who I am and where I'm from. My name is B. Dolan, and I'm a rapper and activist from Rhode Island by way of New York City for a while. And I grew up in an abandoned mill town outside of Providence, Rhode Island in the 80s. And at that time, hip-hop was not only not the dominant culture it is now, it was geographically nowhere near me. And so it was this thing that you trade cassette tapes with your friends in school, or you'd tune into this Boston radio station where you could sometimes hear some rap music. And it was still a secret thing, an underground thing before we even knew the term underground. And it did a number of things to me. It educated me about an experience in a culture I wasn't familiar with, which was black urban culture. But it also gave me a language and it educated me in a practical way about things I was experiencing in my own, we weren't New York City broke, but we were New England white trash broke. And I learned about the concept of poverty and class and inequality and systematic, heard people addressing these things and addressing the rage and frustration of poor people. And rappers like Chuck D and KRS-One took over where my teachers, never went. They gave me the tools, and watching them empower themselves gave me courage and gave me a system to understand the world around me. And throughout my career, for the rest of it, I've struggled with the place of revolutionary or radical art or music. If Bob Dylan or Bob Marley or John Lennon, if those guys can't write the song that sparks a revolution, if Chuck D can't write that song, what are the odds that I can write that song? So I try to be aware of that. But at the same time, I think that those early hip-hop acts that I was listening to did construct for me and help me construct a way of understanding the world around me. And in other ways, those songs are responsible for, the books I read that I went and found, because there were pictures of them on, Rage Against the Machine released an album that it was just a picture of a pile of books. And I went and found those books and I read those books and I educated myself. And so I turned 18. Got the hell out of Rhode Island, went to New York City, because all my favorite rappers were from New York City, so I just went there at age 18, and I stepped on stage for the first time there, and I also, for the first time, stepped into the streets to demonstrate how I felt about what was going on. The same year I moved to New York, an unarmed man named Amadou Diallo, who had committed no crime, was shot 41 times by 4 cops who were acquitted for his arrest. This is still 8 years before the Sean Bell incident that happened more recently. But what a lot of people forget is that pre-9/11, after 9/11, Rudy Giuliani was kind of packaged as America's mayor, and that became the story of who he was. But pre-9/11, he was a mayor that let his police force run wild. This is, 2 years after a man named Abner Louima was abducted, beaten, and sodomized with a broom handle by NYPD officers. This was an endemic at the time of, during Giuliani's administration, of a similar cycle. A person of color who is unarmed and has committed no crime is killed or, badly injured by police. Then the mayor's department attempts to smear that person in the media and is on the side of the cops, who are eventually acquitted or receive a slap on the wrist. That was Rudy Giuliani pre-9/11, and then 9/11 happened, and obviously that affected, probably everyone on the planet in one way or another. That same violence, those same issues that rappers have been talking to me about since I was 12, I saw confirmation of that. And I saw all the things that had been trending kick into overdrive as Homeland Security money was dumped into police departments and they became increasingly more militarized. For me, it was a confirmation. And Mobb Deep said, "There's a war going on outside no man is safe from." And that day was pivotal for a lot of reasons. In the years since, I found my footing in social justice work because, again, I didn't want to trust my songs alone to make a contribution, and got involved in everything from working with at-risk youth to issues of corporate abuse. And I guess you would say I became radicalized. I knew which side I was on, and I chose to represent and fight for it. And as an MC, I've tried to be present to that struggle and to use the tool of hip-hop that was given to me to make honest music that comes from a place of urgency and tells truth to power. Chuck D said, hip-hop is CNN for black people. And I think that as it's expanded, I think you could possibly expand that definition to say it's CNN for poor people. It has that ability still inherently in it, by which people can communicate with each other and we can address the things that are ignored by mainstream media. And so that never left me, that lesson from Chuck D, and that's always how I've approached my music. I had success as a rapper, and in the 12 years since, it's kind of paralleled the aftermath of 9/11. And so I've watched a number of things happen. In 2004, I attended the Republican National Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. A group of organizers flew me out to do a concert on the State House lawn with Dead Prez, I Self Divine, Modest Yahoo, and Rage Against the Machine. And St. Paul was the first time that I had seen since 9/11 what that money and what that culture had done for the police force in America. They were militarized and armored vehicles. Soft uniforms that I saw at the Diallo protests had been replaced by riot gear, tasers, tear gas canisters, zip ties for mass detainment and arrest. The city of St. Paul in 2004 took out a $10 million insurance policy ahead of time for the lawsuits they knew they were going to incur for violating people's civil liberties, and then just went to town. 800 arrests were made that week, including journalists like Amy Goodman of Democracy Now!, who was harassed by a cop and arrested on camera while shouting, "I'm a journalist." The city even raided people's homes weeks before the protest and arrested what they called known protesters preemptively. These are people who hadn't stepped into the streets, they kicked in the door, and arrested them preemptively, knowing that they were breaking the law, but knowing that they had that $10 million insurance policy against the lawsuits. My friend Jared Paul was arrested while sitting in a nearby park on his way to an Atmosphere concert. He wasn't even engaged in a protest at the time. He was just in the wrong park when mass arrests were made. And I thought, this is new. This is right out in the open. This has been the reality for people of color in their neighborhoods for forever. But now these are white kids in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who are making peace signs out of flowers on the State House lawn, and there's snipers all around us, and militarized vehicles and tear gas cannons. And as I'm witnessing this transformation in the world of protest kids, the reports and the outrage from the black and brown communities never stop. The horror stories of police abuse, police killings from all over the country that are continuous in any given year and largely passed over by the national media. But if you're listening to the right CNN, you know that the reports from that station never change. In Sound of the Police, KRS once said, "Take the word overseer like a sample. Repeat it very quickly in the crew, for example. Overseer, 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 officer, officer, officer." And for me, that continuing tragedy was driven home most powerfully and culminated in the shooting death of Oscar Grant in 2009. We're all probably tragically familiar with the story of Oscar Grant, who was lying face down and cooperating when a BART transit cop drew a gun and shot him in the back. The event was captured on multiple cell phone and video cameras and disseminated almost instantly to millions of people and sparked a protest that continues to this day. And in the aftermath of that, I was talking to an activist friend from Boston who was talking to me about Cop Watch and the importance of it and the work they were doing to train people in neighborhoods that were prone to police violence, that, you know, having video cameras in the windows in this neighborhood could be our best defense. Having the cops know that whenever they're in this neighborhood, they're being filmed by the citizens who live here is a great defense. And realizing how powerful those images of Oscar Grant were, and the fact that, you know, because we had the images, because people took out their cell phones and used them, we didn't have to rely on, well, he says this and the witness says this and, you know, they're going to smear him in the media. We had the images. We could watch the video for ourselves, and everyone knew, you know, what they were seeing and what had happened. And in that conversation, she casually said to me, "You should remake F the Police and call it Film the Police." And I laughed, but I was like, that's pretty good. And I just started thinking about, like, film the police, kind of funny, and it's a good hook. And I said, all right, I think I might write that song. So Buddy Peace, who's a producer I collaborate with often, there was no instrumental for F the Police, Dr. Dre's original instrumental, so we had to remake it out of the original samples, which was a really cool, interesting process of finding the record Dr. Dre used and chopping it like he chopped it and figuring out, you know, and once we had the beat, I wrote my verse in the place of A.C.A.B, which, as a rapper or if you're a fan of hip-hop, stepping into A.C.A.B's spot on a classic NWA song came with some weight. And because I'm aware of my place as a straight white male in what I still consider a black art form, hip-hop, and political hip-hop at that, it was important to me that the rest of the track be held down by people who could speak personally on their experience as people of color in dealing with police. I cover a lot of the bases in my verse about protests and the like, and I reached out to Toki Wright of Rhymesayers and Jasiri X from Pittsburgh, who over the next year sent me their verses, and they both killed it, and they spoke specifically about what it's like to interact for them with cops as black people. Toki wrote, "Violence hides in a code of silence. Tyrants hide in an alliance. Quiet or be left somewhere, swept inside it. It's Goliath versus a bigger giant. Got us pulling over so far we ran a curb and hit a hydrant. It's systematic how the symptoms has its symptoms of the democratic law that's been flawed since the Pilgrims landed. So now tell me what you're gonna do. Next time you see the boys in blue, you cock your camera back and point and shoot." And Jasiri X said, "It's vital, because our survival could depend on a video going viral with more viewers than American Idol. Instead of having to bury a child who the cops shot because they thought he carried a rifle. The same cops go to court and swear on a Bible and smile and show the teeth that they preparing to lie through." And so we had this song that was inspired by Oscar Grant about filming the police, and we're preparing to release it on the next album. And suddenly the Occupy movement jumped off. And suddenly the nightly news contained images of white kids and Iraq war veterans getting beaten and tear gassed by militarized cops. And suddenly it was a much larger issue to the American public. And we decided to jump on that because it gave a whole new context for the importance of filming police brutality. So we made the video over the course of 2 weeks for $200. I filmed my bit in England where I was on tour. Toki Wright filmed his section in Minneapolis. Jasiri X filmed a scene in Pittsburgh. And a director in Utah pieced the whole thing together, along with footage of police brutality collected from YouTube, and we released it as a free single. A bunch of blogs picked up the video first, which is kind of standard. And then it spread to the official Occupy Wall Street Twitter account. And after that, thousands of mirror sites posted it, including the largest anonymous accounts on Twitter, numerous organizations and Occupy groups around the world, followed by celebrities like Michael Moore, Tim Roth, Billy Bragg. They all lent their support, they all posted the video, and the video about how your video can go viral went viral. And as a result of this, the hashtag #FilmThePolice, which we attached to the initial song's release, has taken on a life of its own. I check that hashtag occasionally because every rapper Googles themselves, and I can tell you that it feels good to have even contributed a phrase, a useful phrase, a reminder. Street artists in New York City, Enzo and Neo, went on a crazy mural campaign all over Brooklyn and Manhattan with the Film the Police stickers and posters. I've received photos of Film the Police graffiti on the Paris subway and on the walls in Denmark, and the only hiccup came in the form of a comment posted to the YouTube video a couple months later that said, "We'll see who he calls when someone burns down his house." And the username was my home address where I live with my wife. So, we contacted Google, who's responsible for YouTube. They declined to give us any more information. The account was created just to post that comment, obviously. We removed it, and I would call the fire department, clearly, if someone burned down my house. But in the end, I took it as a sign that we were in the right place, addressing what needs to be addressed. And at its best, I think that's what hip-hop is still capable of being and doing, being that tool of knowledge that you can put in people's hands with a clever beat or a good hook, and the way a song can be something to rally around collectively and repeat to each other. That's the legacy, I think, of hip-hop that I try and remain in, and hopefully the legacy of the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. So that's the story of Film the Police and how it came to be. The place of art in revolution or social justice is something that I've struggled with forever, and it's something I've kind of emotionally gone up and down on. When you see huge injustice happening in the world, it's very easy to feel silly when your job is to write songs, and to feel like, what can I do in the face of this, march toward oppression, and yet I look to examples like the songs that were important to the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. When the cops came to break those lines down, everyone locked arms and sang the same song, and those songs were a tool, an important tool. And I've tried in my career to stay away from just kind of empty soapboxing stuff. It's very easy to get applause by saying the government is corrupt and, just rattling off bumper stickers. But I think it's important. I like political music and political art that is concrete, that is immediate. Film the Police. You have a cell phone in your pocket. Here's something you can do tomorrow, today, to make a dent. And so I think there is definitely a place for art. It's not the only thing, but I think it's an important thing.